This warm quinoa salad is not only delicious and wholesome, but high in protein. I'm going to start by cooking my quinoa. I like to rinse the dried quinoa for about a minute. This removes any bitterness. Add the water and some salt. It goes onto the stove and cooks covered for 20 minutes. The other warm elements in this dish are roasted tofu and a sweet potato. I'm using extra firm tofu that I've frozen then defrosted. If you've ever seen my show before, you might know that I do not use a tofu press. Freezing the tofu not only gives the tofu a better texture, but allows squeezing of the tofu, resulting in more liquid being removed. I'm going to cut this tofu into cubes. You could cut it any size you like. I'll get back to the tofu in a minute. Now onto the sweet potato. I'm using a medium sweet potato. When I was a kid, we used to watch reruns of Gomer Pyle. Only some of you will know who that was. Gomer Pyle was in the Marine Corps and he was pretty goofy, so he was always getting into trouble. And he always had to peel potatoes, or spuds I think was what he called them. I helped my mom in the kitchen a lot at that time, and one of my chores was to peel potatoes. I always felt a little bad for me and Gomer Pyle having to peel so many potatoes. But now that I look back, I'm pretty sure I only had to peel a normal amount of potatoes, but for some reason it always seemed like so many. Back to the sweet potatoes. I'm just going to cube these. We could make them a bit bigger, but then they would take longer to cook. While the quinoa, tofu, and sweet potato cook, I'm going to prep the rest of the ingredients. I'm using a medium shallot and cutting it into small pieces. You could use half a small onion if you'd prefer. have cooked chickpeas or garbanzo beans here. You could either use cooked from dried or canned. I really like to use grape tomatoes in this recipe, but we had a bit of a snowstorm in our state and there weren't any grape tomatoes in the store. So I'm using these Campari tomatoes, which I find to be pretty good tomatoes in the wintertime. I'm cutting the tomatoes into chunks. I don't really want the tomato pieces to be too small in this dish. I'm always looking for ways to kick up the nutrition in my dishes, especially with greens. Mixed greens work very well in the salad, but you could use any greens that you like or leave them out. Like most of my recipes, the ingredients can be easily changed to whatever you'd like to use. Now I just have to throw the dressing together. Because this uses quite a bit of lemon juice, I'm going to use bottled lemon juice. If you do use bottled juice, I recommend that you purchase the best one that you can afford. Trust me when I tell you that it makes a big difference. I've also added extra virgin olive oil, tahini, salt and pepper, although the pepper grinder almost didn't work at all. Also some freshly minced garlic. Dressings and sauces are actually pretty easy to make once you understand to use an acid, a fat source, something to even out the acid, seasonings, herbs, and sometimes water. I'm balancing out the acid from the lemon juice with just a bit of maple syrup. I don't actually want the sauce to be sweet though, so I'm using just a small amount. Lastly, a bit of fresh herbs. Dried could totally be used here instead. I'm using 2 fresh thyme sprigs and a half a tablespoon of fresh rosemary. I usually like to use a lot of herbs, but this salad has so much going on that it doesn't really need a lot of extra flavor. So I'm just chopping these herbs. The thyme is already small, but I definitely want to cut the rosemary smaller. As you can see, the dressing is very thick, so I'm diluting it with some water.
So good.
All of the hot ingredients are cooked, and it's time to add them to the salad. And here comes the beautiful part. salad was so flavorful and nutritious, I can't wait to make it again. Check out my channel for lots of delicious vegan recipes.